10. My new school classmate Jura. Life is fun. There was an incorrigible D student in a parallel class and now he runs his own carpentry workshop and his business was good and he was happy. I myself was not doing outstandingly well at school but against a background of many, I have amounted to something, but I am not here for that. Now I would like to write about Jura, the classmate who immediately drew my attention when I came to that class. It was 7th grade when I came. He drew my attention not because he was a good student, there were quite a few of them at least as good as him in this class, not because he was discussing with friends the cryptozoology mysteries or yet another Arthur C. Clarke product reminding me of Andre from my previous school, but because of his excessive arrogance to all those who were welcome to the circle of his few friends. And he could not stand me from the very first day. He was doing really good at all exact sciences such as math and physics. It all came naturally to him and he had no sympathy for his less successful classmates. I remember he once was approached by Sergey, one of the youngs I wrote further down in this book about, to complain him about the physics teacher ferocity for putting him an F for not being able to tell her about a steam turbine operation and Yura sharply whipped out at him, "How could you not tell her that? You even didn't have to read the textbook to get it? All you had to do was just follow the poster arrows, that's it." In the 7th grade he was interested in radio. I remember his heated discussions on then fashionable sound and light show installation circuit solutions with the same advanced radio lovers from the senior classes. His radio hobby had turned to the hard rock passion in 8th grade and then, through rock music and Western pop culture to the West admiration with his inherent teenage black and white thinking. I'll get later back to this. He didn't engage much in sports activities, he went to the pool and I think that was his father, one of the Urban Youth Academy prominent coaches, must have forced him into that. But he was wearing coolest blue jeans, my Soviet teenage unfulfilled dream, and I remember how the whole class went to his apartment to take a look and listen at his huge open reel tape recorder Rostov 102. What about LP discs? A mere mortal in the USSR didn't know that there were LP discs labels except the Soviet government's Melody Records. That was at Jura's I may have first seen these Polydor Records discs. And the first porn magazines, not those faded black and white photocopies but the real ones with glossy Swedish pornography in them, I also must have seen at Jura's. By the 10th grade, he became interested in copying pictures for his slideshows from those magazines. By this time he was obsessed with sex. He was a progressive guy in our class. By the way, here's what I remembered, once at Kislovodsk Waterfalls Valley where we were having a picnic, with a group of girls I separated from the rest of the class and, most importantly, from our class teacher. The girls wanted to smoke cigarettes. We smoked and took pictures. Pictures turned out great. The girls several times borrowed my negative film to have more pictures printed. And that film once nearly got to the teacher's table. It would have been killer stuff and, the way I wouldn't go to give it to the teacher, the intrigued chemistry lady teacher sensed that there must be something and she strongly determined to take it away from me. Fuck no. And the whole class got breathless. What the hell is in there? Was the question in the air. I burned the negative at the first recess and Jura kept prying into secrets what was in there anyway. Oh, we were just sitting nude. Jokingly blurted Sveta, my new table mate, just to get him off our backs. Fuck me, was on Jura's face. I knew what was exactly running in his head, he was freaking out at this although he fought hard not to show it. He even muttered something like, what a big deal. In fact, there was nothing more than the girls posing with cigarettes in their hands. But if our school teachers had those pictures in their hands they would have made really good mincemeat out of those girls. Meanwhile, Jura's school performance was steadily declining along with his violent dissident behavior growth. He was the only non-Komsomol organization member of our class and even once asked around for the Komsomol badge to pin it to his, ass. There no longer was Stalin-style socialism but fooling around with things like this still was dangerous. Now he had become our school teacher's headache. He even managed to run a small porn slideshow at our prom disco. Perhaps these guys were quick on the uptakes when the school teachers got drunk enough not to notice or pay much attention to it, and, don't forget, it was only 1982. I saw Jura a few times after we finished our high school. Once when I was working as an excavating operator assistant when we were digging up a leaking sewer. He was passing me by so fashionably dressed. He didn't say hello to me, of course. I was hoping, however, that had not recognized me like that. Well, I saw him a couple more times, for the last time we said hello, and I was surprised to see him smoking. I heard he went to the university and then he had either dropped out or got himself kicked out. There were talks about him being on drugs. And here we go. In just a few days I saw him 3 times after 20 years. For the first time at a class reunion barbecue party. He looked remarkably well, especially for a guy allegedly being on drugs. I felt his respect this time, the respect of a person whose favor I desperately tried to earn so hard once. The second time I saw him when we drank with Oleg, the sea captain, on vacation. Jura was just after his work. He laid tiles for the living, and I could still see his unwashed paint marks on his hands. For the third time I ran across him in the street. He was on his way to work. He was unshaven, wearing worn-out overalls. He crossed a street to shake hands with me and said that I looked like a real Yankee, took my phone number, saving it in his 2002 cheap Motorola phone, and he left without saying goodbye. He stayed Jura all right? And he called me a couple of times to have 1 or 2, but I, under various pretexts, gave him a wide berth. I am not interested in drinking for the sake of drinking. Not with him anyway. Many years later, when I started dating the most beautiful classmate girl Urka, Jura, who once liked her so much that he wanted to sit with her at the desk, and when he was denied that by the teacher, he shared his desk with nobody else and he stayed all by himself, was really jealous, I saw it. He kept calling us with Urka a sweet couple at our classmates' Jubilee reunion we had. 11 My classmate Marina. It's thought to be good to criticize the social networks. I do that too. There are a lot of reasons for it, but one of them has helped me to find many to whom I hadn't talked in maybe 30 or more years. No kidding. I'll be honest. Since I had finished school I never missed it, didn't look forward to any classmate reunions, nor would I want to see any teachers. I wasn't missing the class much either, in which its YCL with the consent of our class teacher wrote in my personal record that I was an avoidant and has no comrades in his class. That was true. I didn't have any friends in that class. I wasn't very social. For the first time, I met some of my classmates accidentally after 7 years, and I was very happy with that, on my first vacation from the north. We all met at a disco, and in our joy, we have gathered at one of them and celebrated this occasion till morning dawn. After that, almost every holiday I would meet some of my classmates, including girls. Then, being busy addressing my problems at difficult times for everyone, I have long ceased to go on vacation. And when, after so many years, I went south to visit my parents, thanks to the most famous Russian social network, I found some of those my classmates with whom I had no contacts before. A Jewish straight-A student, Lena, for example. Now, whenever I go there, I see somebody else there. Became friends with many of them now. And I always have been shocking those whom I met by being quite different from what they memorized me. All this time at my classmate reunions I would inquire about Marina, but none seemed to know her whereabouts. In fact, it was Marina I was about to write here. Actually, when I came to that class, it wasn't her I had noticed first. There was yet another Marina. I really love Marinas. An orphan who lived with her grandmother, a talented athlete with a bold character. I had noticed this Marina later, but still pretty fast. Couldn't help having a feeling that I had already seen her somewhere. We had turned out to be in the same kindergartens but in different groups. And she, more than other girls in the class, was arresting maturing boys' sights on her beautiful legs for what, as I now understand, She often had been jawed by our watchful homeroom teacher for her inexcusable frivolously cut school uniform, and our class girls seemed to be jealous of her either. However, Marina had friends in many ways similar to her, except that their academic performance was not as good as Marina's. And how quick a learner she was! I saw myself sitting next to her in the next academic year. I'd like to ask you, if you happen to miss something at a lesson, do you always have the teacher explain it again for you? Right? Good for you. It's always been a problem for me to admit that I didn't understand, missed, or didn't know something. My deceased dad often had criticized me for that. If you do not know anything, he would demand indignantly, just say, I do not know. Just damn say it. Wasn't it him who had done all this on me? Wasn't it him losing his wool if I either missed or couldn't get something when he was teaching me math in the first place? Well, I didn't inherit his almost computer logical thinking. He was a war kid, a hungry runt and an A student prodigy in his class. I have never been closely as good with the math as he was. Just try to say to people like him that you missed something in that trigonometric function. This my inability to ask again, if I had missed something for fear of appearing to be stupid in front of others, didn't do any good to me in the future. Marina, on the other hand, if she ever happened, what was extremely rare, to miss something, she was never shy to meticulously ask somebody again and have it explained properly to her. Well, where did you get this from? Okay. What about this? Okay, got it. And this? Gradually, I learned to ask her to help me out and have her explain me something. For that I would help her with her Russian. I always corrected her misspellings and filled in missing commas in her copybook after the dictations. I never knew any grammar rules, nor did I care about it. I just had my innate spelling sensitivity. Marina was the most enjoyable girl sitting next to me. I am about to give my head for the fact that she was all our boys' classy chasey. I have heard our boys' talks. I don't mention myself with my imaginations about her. However, as we know, teenage girls treat the boys of the same age as if they were kids inferior to them. At this time they prefer to date older boys. I myself had often seen Marina being at 7th grade coyly talking with some big fellow of the 10th grade. We also admired Marina in a gym class. I am not going to describe her body. She had a superb shape. Well, maybe her breasts were not as prominent as, say, some of her friends, but everything else was just great. I am not here to write about that. We had admired her for being a great volleyball player. God! How was she playing? She'd take balls at the most incredible situations, passed it around and effectively attacked. And her ball service hits were generally devastating, they were almost never taken. I myself wasn't overly good in team sports except for rugby, what didn't stop me to appreciate the beauty of the game. So I remember Marina as the best volleyball player in the class, a sort of a volleyball ninja. If I was asked whether I had been in love with her, I would say, probably not. Why not? Well, like most in the class, I liked her, I'm sure more than others. I just felt she was too good for me and I was killing all my feeble impulses at her. Why? Because I had no illusions. Well, what was I at 14 to 17 years old? A reserved and insecure teenager who even had no normal clothes. That's why he always had a problem with tonsils and sinusitis, and because of testosterone overabundance in the blood caused by his early puberty he also had acne problems which didn't add up any eye appeal to him. I don't like to remember that time. As for Marina, I could only say that, if desired, she could get under anybody's skin, especially mine. Back in 1990, me and Oleg the sailor, he is a sea captain now, yet another classmate of ours once visited Marina, now a married woman who had a 7-year-old son, a charming blonde boy. I don't even remember whose idea it was, to go to Marina's. Mine perhaps. She had not changed at all. And I was struck by her apartment's stylish decoration. We didn't have those big boxes malls those days where you could get those materials for construction and renovation. I was always amazed by the people's ability to have their fridges full with food and wardrobes of clothes while there was not a thing at stores at the sunset of the Soviet Union. We drank and talked at Marina's. I was so reluctant to leave. Since then I haven't seen her for the reasons I described above. Any of her classmates who had seen her consistently stated, including my cousin and Oksana, yet another beautiful and the star of the parallel class, that she hasn't changed at all. I heard that she was an accountant in a town major employer where my father has still been working, while her school friends were still worked as a seller at food stores. When social networks came along I naturally tried to find her but to no avail. Until, after returning from vacation I saw a message from her on my website page. I had a regret that I had not checked the website while I still was on vacation. The internet penetration wasn't nearly as good as it is now and my parents didn't have it yet then. I was still there in the south according to the date the message was sent. I could have seen her. I saw her a few years later. We had a date in a nice restaurant. We had a lot to talk about. For once, I learned that, when I and Oleg were leaving her and kissed Marina goodbye, she got incredibly horny when I touched her. She really liked me. And I remembered yet another case when she, of a sudden, came to visit me to take some notebook on physics. That was my mother, who opened the door to her. I remember how confused I got at that moment. I was surprised. I did not have her notebooks. I found, however, a draft that I took from her once which I forgot. And why would she need it? I remember my mother's suspicious look on her face and how she underhandedly, yet very threateningly, wagged her finger at me. I just snapped angrily back at her. I just gave that draft paper back to Marina. And now it became clear to me why would she come to me back then. She had that rapid sexual maturation too, probably even more turbulent than I had with mine. We, laughingly, regretted that we could never seize each other. It was even scary for us to imagine what we would have done to each other if we, in fact, had made it. We for sure would go off ours, Dolly. She has found someone for that anyway, nothing could stop her. I still regret that it was not me. Just think about it. My first woman could be Marina herself, one of the coolest girls in the city. 12 a stunning homeless. Suppose we all stopped drinking here in USSR. He was ranting, we will have to withdraw from Afghanistan. And the fucking Nicaraguan Sandinistas we support, will immediately lose. The Salvador rebels will surrender. He raised his hands, just like that. If they won't let us drink vodka. He kept going on, we'll switch to cologne. If they take out our cologne, we'll eat the fucking detergent. He was a colorful homeless Armenian guy, a laborer on a construction site, who rallied on his way to work in the commuter bus. This time, he was mad at Gorbachev's version of prohibition he had launched a couple of years before, an anti-alcohol decree in the late USSR. I think no one even knew his real name. We all called him Ara. They said he had served his times many times and once in a solitary confinement for God only knows how long. And everybody seemed to know him in this town. In a small town like this, any outstanding person would always be noticeable, and once, when I was standing in line to our local clinic reception desk, I heard a commotion nearby. It was him all right. What do you mean I am not yours? He was shouting at a lady clerk in the registry window. Whose do you think I am? Am I a German or something? Well, he didn't have that residence permit and he wasn't allowed in this clinic. And he tried to prove she was all wrong with that. One evening I and my cousin were going home from Piatigorsk in a city bus where a good half of passengers' attention was drawn by a shit-faced man telling stories. Damn, probably that was this Ara again. Yes, it was him again. It's a kind of ersatz, you know. He was saying to a lady, do you know what an ersatz is? Ersatz is a German word for a defective replacement, a substitute. Damn, I admired him. I had just learned what an ersatz was just because to him. A homeless wino who knew more than I did. But that wasn't all. In the course of his talking to a lady he put, like, as the French would say, and said something in French, and another young lady turned to him and said something back to him in French. He turned to her and from then on they both spoke French only. All were fucking shocked. She turned out to be a French teacher, and he, fuck me, was born in Lyon and French was his mother tongue. Oh, dear. The care of the world must have taken the hell of a lot of the shine out of him.